Good afternoon, everyone. Recent modifications, FDA, they can detain without physical examination for as long as they want any foods imported. Tunisia looking for imports, adding more countries of origin. Anybody welcome that can give food now. Petroleum reserves, U.S., lowest since records began. Maybe it makes sense why $10 gasoline was programmed into pumps across the U.S. Single canister propane, almost $12 in Canada. Hungary turning away petrol tourists. Well, the price is getting so high, lock it up. Natural gas doubling. And ice cream inflation, €6 for a Magnum. Limits in Germany, one per customer, what you can buy. Shrinkflation in the U.S. And lessons from 1930s depression, barter will be a thing. And let's take a moment of zen in the sequoia forests. Because the world around us is a programmed illusion. The CEO of Wells Fargo warns the worst is yet to come for Americans. Deutsche Bank is forecasting a major recession among similarities to the 1970s era of stagflation and real wealth destruction. If the playbook follows the 1970s, gold and silver are the standout cheap asset from this starting point. Bloomberg Intelligence forecasts $2,500 gold by the year's end. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo see gold hitting record highs in 2022. Former Gold Corp Chairman Ian Telfer warns peak gold has been reached regarding maximum output, and for that reason raised his forecast to $2,500 an ounce. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the No Fee for Life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 1-800-356-4470 for a free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated IRA gold dealer from 2016 to present, click on that link in the description box below. And now on with the video. And I wanted to start off by saying thank you for spending your valuable time here with me at the Adapt 2030 channel. Because the insanity continues. Let's lock it up. If you see this on the cars, you know there's a problem. $7 gas, that's old news. $10 is the new news. California gas prices leap. This is off the Daily Mail in the UK. And remember seeing those stories just a couple months back about 4 digits being programmed into gas pumps across the US, which means $10 gasoline. Oh, we are so close. And where does that gasoline come from, do you say? Well, it's called a distillate fuel oil. And if we look at the fuel oil inventory in the U.S., that yellow line is far, far lower than the averages. So things like your gasolines and your diesel fuels, that's all distillates, and it's going to go lower, meaning your prices are going to go higher. Now, if we look at the U.S. Strategic Petroleum reserves back to when the inception was, this is the lowest it's ever been. So it seems like these two are riding in tandem. Less diesel fuel, less gasoline, less oil. Where do you think the prices are going to go? And the thing to ask is, how easy is it to alleviate this situation when it's not? Because we see all types of people taking advantages of this situation to save cash on fuel. Hungary, jumping over to Europe here. It seems that there are what is considered petrol tourists driving in from other nations, filling up in Hungary because their gas prices remain some of the lowest in the EU, and then driving out to their very expensive countries with gasoline prices. So, and very smartly, Hungarian government said only cars with Hungarian license plates are entitled to the cheap fuel. Everybody else, you pay the market rate. And speaking of market rates here, let's look at propane. A single 16-ounce propane tank, 1 pound, $11.49. Now that's Canadian. I've been following the Twitter feed that keeps putting out the price increases. These used to be $7 about 4 months ago. Now they're $11.49. That's for one, not two. We bundle these in the States and sell them as a pair. And staying on the theme of gases, natural gas. If we look back to January of 2022, the beginning of this year, and we follow that blue line up, it is more than doubling. Will it pull back in time for winter season? Not sure, but let's look at a longer trend line, because that's really where we want to look to see where this sits in the history of natural gas pricing, something we can relate to. Obviously, that vertical line, like we've seen so many other commodities, 2022. But if we draw back to 2006, 7, and 8, we see that double spike. $13 and change was the high during the financial crisis. A lot of things running up into the $13 range. So we still got a little ways to go to hit that record pricing, but it's just really a coin toss right now. Do you think we're going to get there or not by the end of the year? Now, New York Post putting out International Energy Association chief saying that U.S. summer fuel shortages could be worse than the 1970s oil crisis. And if you remember that chapter from history, the economy was wrecked for the better part of a decade trying to bounce back out of that Arab oil embargo. Just goes to show if the oil or energy is cut off, the economy is going to get wrecked for a better part of a decade. You're going to be waiting in line for hours and hours and hours, or the fuel is not going to be available and you just have to come back. I'm hearing rumors of ag diesel. It's the red diesel fuel that's put in tractors being limited now. I myself experienced something today filling up my truck, and I had a few extra gas cans because we're working with some mowers and chainsaws, and I needed extra fuel for different things around the farm here. I limited to $90 on a purchase. So the fuel pump cut itself off, even though I needed more. And then I went in and said, hey, the thing turned off. Yeah, well, they're limited to $90 now, East Tennessee. So it looks like it's happening. Most people don't get to that $90 range on a regular fill up in their car, so they don't notice it. But I needed to pull some extra fuel for farm usage. And sure enough. So now I'm starting to see it in every sector that there are limitations on how much fuel we can get as an individual now. So which countries are going to suffer the most if there is a fuel cut off or fuel rationing or just a general lack of fuels that get so highly priced that they come into demand destruction? $13 a gallon gasoline, $15 a gallon gasoline in the States. That's kind of range I'd be looking at for something like this to occur. Here you go. Part of your answer lies in this. Distribution of global equity market cap by country. Western Europe, North America. When it goes, everything goes. So jumping in on the global inflation rates here as of the 7th of June. U.S. in blue, 8.3%. That's government statistics. Shadow stats puts it above 16% now. Look at that. Turkey coming out with their new inflation numbers just a few days ago, 73%. That is borderline hyperinflation. We're all going to be getting there sometime in the future. And things are starting to shift politically. So you see Tunisia, that is producing record crops at the moment in terms of wheat production, is now adding what's considered more origins or countries that are available to import food into Tunisia. So here we are, already anything trade deals, anything goes now, just bring it in. They're coming shy of the 1.9 million tons of wheat because a lot of that comes from the Black Sea area. So you're going to start to see this repositioning of, hey, please give us food, we'll buy it. This is the way governments are going to respond to it in the beginning. And a subscriber of the Adapt 2030 channel sent me the link to this story here. Thank you so much for doing that. I never would have found this one. Working in food safety and then sends me this food safety article. Nice. So what it goes into is the recent modifications in the FDA, or the Food Drug Administration, the import alerts, It looks kind of innocuous, like, okay, it's just more government speak. But what you really need to delve into is what is considered the detention without physical examination definition, meaning that they're going to pull anything they think, quote unquote, is suspect and throw it to the side without examination. And then, in good time, evidence from the importer has to be supplied and submitted. Third-party private laboratory reports, and it's all up to the shipper, the importer. They have to prove it meets U.S. standards. So what happens here? Well, food comes in, suddenly it's detained without physical examination of all of these foodstuffs. Fish, fishery products, seafood products, dried fruits, fruit juices, fruit concentrates, cheeses, and then 4502, undeclared colors. And then 4507, undeclared sweeteners. And you see how the definition of things are in swing and flux anyway every day because of bottlenecks in the supply chain. And it just goes on and on. Raw agricultural products, canned foods, food products. And I ask you, what better way would there be to confiscate food, reroute it, and take it out of prying eyes under this guise of new food safety regulation? How much food could be taken straight from the dock and then sent elsewhere? Nobody would know. This could be a new supply chain within the supply chain based on just this rule change here. So think about that for a second. But wait, there's a lot of food coming imported from other countries. Where's it gone to? Where's it going? Well, you can clearly see it could just be confiscated and put off to the side. Anywhere it could be off to the side. Duration of time, undeclared as well. Months, years, I don't know. That could turn into somebody else's stockpile, could it not? Because all I see is rising food prices and availability of foods. This comes from the EU here. Check it out, top left. Magnum, just a regular Magnum chocolate-coated bar that you would have during the summertime. €6 for one. Not a box, one. Ice cream cone, used to be 50 cents. Remember, at €4.50 now. Such a bargain in Europe. And we apologize that some products are not available Aldi. But we're seeing this everywhere, from Sam's Club to Costco. And also shrinkflation. I have started to align a bunch of slides of shrinkflation that have just come into view. Apparently there's a whole crew of people out there now throwing this up on Telegram, shrinkflation photos, before and afters. So I'll start you with this one. Honey Bunches of Oats was 14.5 ounces. Now it's 12 ounces. You're paying more for it, but welcome to the new world. Germany, this on Wall Street Silver here, limiting one per customer. This is for bags of flour and pasta. Coming soon to a supermarket near you globally. This is inbound for the entire planet. So when you see people standing in bread lines in the 1930s, soup lines, if for a better term, we need to take a look back at how things deconstructed and then moved along. Because people were willing to trade. So were shopkeepers. I found these images off the 1930s Great Depression. What was it like in the 1930s? And you can find an enormous amount of videos like these across YouTube. And Neil McCoy Ward does a great job with his Great Depression 1930s diary series. First-hand accounts of people telling you what it was like in the 1930s. It was like this, signs up everywhere in these shops. You don't need money. What do you got? You got a watch? You got jewelry, got a necklace, got gold, got silver. We'll take anything. And these shopkeepers loaded up on whatever they wanted. Antique clocks, it didn't matter. I read through the list of things that were traded. Antique clocks was one of them. And then eventually they had 3 or 4 or 5 antique clocks, and then, oh, okay, we need something else. Never mind the holiday, and they were talking banking holiday. We will trust you. Lines of credit, again, pledge something, and we will get out on the barterables and the tradables. I'm just going by history. This is definitely the way it's going to work again, because during the Great Depression, local communities started to create their own chits or internal money within a community that could be circulated. They started to mint their own coinage or something that could be construed as a tradable asset that had a specific value of 1 equals 1, and everybody agreed upon that value, and they created their own monetary system in terms of IOUs. And then after the monetary system stabilized, 1937, 38, everything was cashed in and went back to normal again. But I could sure see the same thing happening. And that was such a true statement that these shopkeepers were saying, we'll trade you anything of value. And it became one of those. And the shopkeepers then on sell to somebody else. And it was just revolving, like we can see, estate sales right now. That's a great place to buy a lot of these. Would be considered tradables for the future. Quick FYI, check out the estate sales that are coming up this weekend. The value there in terms of old farm tools that have the hardened steel, sewing kits, old pairs of scissors, old school stuff that can be, I found a hand sharpener from the 1940s. That was a really good bargain there. So there's a lot of things that you can find from the past that are mere pennies that would be hundreds of dollars in the future, and also tradables. And again, I cannot reiterate enough. This is a distant early warning for 2023. As we're marching through these food shortages at the end of the year, so many people are going to wake up and realize they have to grow their own food. Well, what comes with that? Well, obviously seed, and you're going to need fertilizer. Well, the fertilizer is going to be really expensive and not available in some places, so you can make your own. You'll have to learn what to do with, garden clippings, grass clippings, leaves at the end of the year, how you can compost that and really get a very nice, rich humus to start to put into your garden. That's going to take a year to build your soil, maybe more. Worm castings, little worm farm, get that all mycorrhiza, that sort of thing, and build your soils out. You're also going to need farm tools. Those are not going to be easy to come by, say, spring planting season 2023. Everybody's going to be on it. Because even going back to the victory gardens in the 1940s during World War II, 40% of all agriculture in America was home garden based. 40% of every vegetable eaten in America was from a home garden, not from a centralized delivery into the supermarket. That didn't happen until the 1950s after World War II. Huge amounts of takeaways from history here. Huge. Tradables will be anything. There's going to be a barter economy that will spur up out of nothing because somebody who has access to food, foodstuffs, and anything that can help you grow food will trade for something else. The economy is going to go through a transition. I encourage you to read through the 1930s on how they dealt with it and how it will be dealt with again. That way you're not caught off guard. You can get things ready for this chapter we're moving into rapidly right now. So you're going to watch it unfold. I will say the same timeline that I did about 6 months ago. We're coming now to the end of the planting time. So in about another week or so, indeed, the final planting tallies of what farmers had really put in the ground versus what they intended to put in the ground back in the beginning of the year. So the USDA sends out a survey to farmers and says, hey, farmer, what are you going to plant? They write back and say, well, we want to put out 1,000 pounds or 1,000 acres of corn, And they'll say, we want to put out 3,000 acres of sorghum. And now that's not happening. The fertilizers are expensive. The diesel fuel is too expensive. Sometimes they don't get the farm input, so they're going to prevent plant. We're going to get a good gauge on the numbers of what was truly planted. And a lot of farmers have switched in midstream of what they did plant versus what they intended to plant. So once this corn debacle came out with the fertilizer shortages, a huge, I'm going to say a gargantuan amount of farmers moved away from that corn right away, from the heavy feeding, and jumped right over into something a little bit easier, such as soybeans that can create some of its own nitrogen. All right, there's been massive shifts in what's going to be grown this year, and it'll all come out. And this is going to be the awareness coming in the end of June into July. Then they're going to do the crop tours at the end of July and August, and we'll really get the smack in the face wake up of what is not coming. The decrease in acreage, the decrease in yields, the smidgenish of ridiculous low growth plants because of drought, not enough fertilizer, and they're going to look out and go, no, this is impossible. We're going to get yields that we've seen in the 1930s or 1940s before what we consider industrialized agriculture with massive amounts of inputs of fertilizer and pesticides and herbicides to get the yields we have today. We're going back 50 plus year in the yield. That's going to spook the markets, and then they're going to come for delivery. a lot of futures contracts won't be fulfilled because they don't actually have the corn or the wheat to deliver to the people that own the contracts to say, we want physical delivery. And then the banks are going to get fined, the clearinghouses that are facilitating in those contracts that can't deliver. It's still going to be an open contract and they're getting fined by the day. This is all coming right now. And then the panic's going to ensue once the general populace realize what's going on. Oh my. Oh my. That's what I'm saying. If you can get to an estate sale, try to pick up some of these tools, some of these things, you're going to have to be hand sewing some of your items. And I encourage you to buy a huge amount of socks before they get unavailable. I'm already getting word. I've talked about the sock thing many a time, and I get messages occasionally of people writing in saying there's only size 7 socks left. There's no one of those one size fits all for men up to size 12. Those are long gone. They're down into the medium socks. That's it. So, you're really starting to see a lot of things progress into, it's not a crystal ball. I'm reading history. You already see what's forecast out. All these huge financial institutions are telling you what's going to happen. And we can protect ourselves by looking at the past. And it's hitting. And then 2023, the farm implements or anything to grow food in your own yard or garden, it's going to be real hard to come by. Real difficult to come by. That'll be the next shortage, is anything to get you at the home level to grow, like even a tiny little shovel will be worth its weight in gold. Which is why we need to take a deep breath. A moment of Zen in the sequoia forest. It's all about us tuning back into nature. Put your fingers back in the soil. Get in touch with that vibration again. Because that's what will sustain you through this, that life-giving force of growth from seed. We're going to have to tap back into old school roots again. We're going to have to let this world go. We're going to have to go back to this pioneering lifestyle and embrace it. It's the only way we're going to move through it. You're going to have to grow your own food once more. But if you're not ready for that, you're going to have storable foods. That's a no BS assessment. You got to have food in your house. You must have it. These supply chains are going to break down further. And you already seen through multiple articles, we are going into something that has not been experienced in multi-centuries in terms of the upset in agricultural production and the economy. If you do not have food stored, you're going to have a very difficult time getting through this. So please, whether you use My Patriot Supply, the 3-month emergency food supply to get ready, 25-year shelf life, that link's in the description box below. Or you go out to the store this weekend and start buying 25, 50, 100 pounds of flour and 50 pounds of sugar and 100 pounds of rice, and at least get something in your stores. Canned foods, seeds, you need everything. You're going to have to go through this. We're all going through it right now. Like that giant wave is in front of you. You need to take that deep breath right now. It's about to hit. I'm serious. We are here now. You need to get ready. And that's the reason I do this Adapt 2030 channel. Thank you for spending your time. We all need to get ready. And if all of us are ready, we're going to get through this incredibly easily. It's just if we're not ready, it's going to create the problem. So here comes the weekend. Please get out and do something to make your lives easier through this transition. David Dubain signing off, and I'll see you next video.